everyone. Thank you for being with us all day. I know it's the last session. We're a little bit tired, so it's an honor for you guys to stay here with us today. My name is Yvan Doumbé, as he said. I work for a radio station called LFM, which focuses on women in Douala, Cameroon. I'm also a music executive for a label called B-Boy Records in Cameroon as well. And I am vice president of the Cameroonian Music Council. And it's an honor for me to be here today. So thank you, Access 2024, and thank you, Music in Africa. Before we continue, I would like to say that today we're going to talk about exporting and developing African independent artists in the global market. And this is a topic that is crucial. It's a topic that is timely. And I am super happy to be with my panelists today as we dive into this exciting topic. And of course, we can't wait to hear your questions and your insights towards the end of our discussion. Now, I'll start with the ladies, Clement, even though you're close to me. Please, we're going to have, of course, presentations of our panelists. We're starting off with Isioma.
Hi, my name is Isioma. I'm the head of promotions at Chocolate City Music Nigeria, and I'm also Young John's manager from Africa, and I own my own promotions company called Home Agency.
Okay, amazing. Next, we're going to go with Blaine. So Blaine, please.
Hello, my name is Blaine. I'm a recording artist and the founder and CEO of Bana Records. It's a startup record label in Ethiopia.
Thank you, Blaine. Now, Clement, since you're closer to me.
My name is Clement Ishimwe. I'm CEO and founder of Killer Music, which is the first record label to be established here in Rwanda. That's how young our industry is. And I'm a musician too, songwriter, composer, yeah.
And last but definitely not least, we have Joshua.
Hi everyone, my name is Joshua Malalitso Chiundiza, and I am an electronic music composer and audiovisual artist from Harare, Zimbabwe. I'm part of the band Bantu Spaceships, which will be showcasing on Friday at the Moody Space. Yeah, and happy to be here.
A round of applause for our panelists, please. Well, without further ado, we're going to dive right into our conversation. We're talking about African independent artists and the strategies that they have to implement to be able to break into the global market. As artists or as artist managers, we have experienced or we have seen challenges that these artists have had to encounter when it comes to breaking into the global market. And I'm going to start off with Blaine, and I will ask you, what is, from your experience, of course, what do you think is the most significant challenge for an African independent artist? It could go from market access to lack of infrastructure to lack of funding. What do you think?
Lack of funding, for one, that's the main one. But I think the major problem that African artists have is the perception of music in general in Africa. Like, it's not a serious career or a choice of career. It's more of like a hobby or like something that you do on the sideline. So there's this bad perception that is stemmed in the families and the communities, and then it goes beyond that to government, like everybody not taking artists seriously. So I feel like that's the major setback that artists have. Third one is also infrastructure. We don't have access to proper recording studios, proper recording engineers, just to kind of like have the right resources to create the quality music that is required to compete in the global market. So these are the challenges. Other than that, like marketing, just in terms of like skills development, in terms of like the music professionals around artists that are like, so, for example, managements, marketing companies and everything. So there's a lot of challenges with, recording artists.
Well, thank you for that. So what you're saying is lack of, for you and for your experience, lack of infrastructure, lack of, not being taken seriously, lack of professionalization. And I saw you, Joshua, you were saying yes, yes, yes. So what do you think, or what do you have to add to what Blaine just said?
I mean, I think for me, lack of professionalism is a very serious one, because I think African artists are, in general, very enterprising artists. So we tend to find a way to do things. Like if someone needs to, I mean, even if our studios or whatever are not up to standard, we still find a way of producing good quality, creative, innovative music. But I think the professional side is lacking. I think, speaking from a Zimbabwean perspective, I remember one time performing at an event, we got paid. 2 weeks later, we're wondering where the money went. And it's like, okay, you know, like, who do I talk to about that? And I think that, for me, is a key area that needs to be addressed, where African artists have spaces where they can go to. It doesn't have to be like a university or anything formalized, but just like spaces where they can go to and consistently talk about the music industry.
It's interesting you say that, because at some point you mentioned being African independent artists being enterprising despite what they may have or access to. But the one thing that we can say is we've had access, almost all artists have access to technology, have access to digital platforms. And this is where I'll talk to you, Clément, about digital platforms and the role of technology in the reach, or the wide reach, for African independent artists when it comes to being seen or visible in the global market. What do you have to say about that?
I think now is probably the best time for independent artists to exist, because now with the internet penetrating, you know, a wide range of countries and people, now artists can access to market that they weren't able to before, because you needed, you know, to be signed to major labels to be able to be played on, you know, mainstream media and everything. But now you can easily produce something in your garage, and, you know, the next day you're becoming the next big thing. But also there are pros and cons to, you know, everything. The way it gives access to everybody also gives access to also some bad people, you know. Sometimes can play with your brain, with your intellect, if you're not strong enough, because the amount of comments you receive, they're not always positive, especially when you're starting. So it could easily deter you from, you know, the target you had, because you're seeing a number. You could easily trend in a negative way. That's what I'm saying, on the negative side of things. But if well used, it's now the easiest time for independent artists to reach a wider market through digital platforms.
So, like you said, pros and cons when it comes to the role of technology or digital platforms. And you spoke a lot more about, let's just say, the reaction of, let's just say, the public, or when they're listening to your music and stuff. And then I'll take digital platforms and I'll ask you, Isioma, what do you think about the impact that digital platforms have on the careers of African independent artists? So we're talking TikTok, we're talking Spotify, we're talking YouTube and all that. What is your take?
Okay, so first of all, every artist must see their brand and themselves as a business. Now, as a business, you have to see yourself as the CEO. Like, you have to see yourself as the CEO of your career. That's the artist. Now, I don't know if we remember during lockdown 2020, we had Black Bones who signed to Chocolate City. And that time, it was really tough for people to, like, market. Obviously, you had your song playing on the radio. But then how can we make this song a hit song? Black Bones at that time took it upon himself to go on everybody's, like, social media and start commenting, stream Haba by Black Bones. Stream Haba by Black Bones. Guess what? That song went to #1 when you had artists like Burna Boy and so on the charts, but he went to #1. So you have to be able to leverage on social media platforms, leverage on even streaming platforms. As an artist as well, you should be able to ask your distro company, research and say, oh, I want to be on this playlist. I want to be here, I want to be there. Don't just leave it up to, let's say, oh, I'm distributing through this company, I leave it up to them. No, I should be able to go to Apple Music and say, this playlist, why can't I be there? I need to be there. So set a target for them and say, I need to be on these places, as well as taking your own social media pages to push and promote yourself, not just saying, oh, I got this budget or this like marketing advance to say, oh, I just want to leave it to the social media influencers. You have your Instagram followers, you have your TikTok followers. Why not market yourself? Again, it's your business.
So to double down a little on what you're saying when it comes to marketing yourself, most of the time, a little bit earlier actually, in one of the panels, there was someone in the crowd who asked the question about how to market himself and how to brand themselves. Because we may say, okay, brand yourself, but then what do I do? What is branding myself? What is marketing myself? How do I do that
How do you?
as an independent artist?
Okay, so let's circle back to how do you market yourself? You have your music. First of all, the most important thing to being an artist is make sure you have a marketable song. Make sure you have good music. How are you able to market that music? Your music helps build your brand, first of all. If you have no good music, you're not able to build a solid brand in the first place. So having to find channels and ways to distribute your music would help you put yourself on global platforms.
I completely understand. And now when we're talking about, would we say, and this question I would send over to Blen, when she's talking about branding yourself, marketing yourself, finding those channels, you also mentioned marketing a little earlier. What do you think it is when an artist has to market themselves or brand themselves, be it online or to be able to get that visibility or that audience when it comes to the global market?
Sorry, what's the question?
The question is, what is your take on how an artist should brand themselves or market themselves to be seen or to be heard?
So I feel like every person has their authentic self, right? At the end of the day, the music that they make is a reflection of their authentic self as well. So it's just figuring out, like, as much as the effort they put into the music, just putting more effort into, like, also the brand itself. Like, so branding means, like, the visual representation. How do you present yourself, like, in front of people, you know? So how does your social media speak what your music speaks about, you know what I mean? So just evaluating that and creating content that complements, like, what your music is about or what your sound is about. Also, the target audience that you're trying to have your music reach, you know what I mean? So just keeping them in mind and having content that serves them and at the same time that kind of represents your brand as well. So just trying to figure out how to translate your music into all these other marketing elements.
When you talk about being yourself, let's not forget that as we're trying to reach that global market, we're also trying to remain true to who we are, true to our culture, true to our country. And it's going to be a little shaky segue that I'm going to put here. But then when I talk country, when I talk culture, when I talk who you are as a person, I kind of also want to ask you, Clement, for example, when it comes to the involvement of our different governments in our arts and our culture or in pushing our music. What is the role, for example, today, we're able to see that the Rwandan government is very involved in arts and pushing culture, and they support. So what is that impact? What does that have as an impact to an African independent artist? How can that help them?
First of all, it's a new thing. We're happy that now the government is really putting a lot of efforts into creative industries. It really helps a lot because that's the body that's looking after you. Otherwise, it could be you on your own. So, as an independent artist, you need also the things you need to have in place. You need a place where you can record your music. You need a place where you can have a show, even if it's for your family or a few people. So all those things are there because you have an understanding government. And as Josh said earlier, and it starts with taking music seriously. I think you mentioned it too. when the government thinks music is a business as the rest of the businesses in the country, now that's really a good thing for artists, not only independent artists but everyone, because now they start looking at it as a source of income, and anything that you could need or ask for is catered for in a different way, but not different from the way they used to think. You're doing this because you failed at school, or you're doing this because you don't have other options. But now it's looked at as one of the something that can contribute to the economy of the country. So I think for an independent artist, it's really important that they get the support from the government, especially in countries like, let's say, Rwanda, where you don't have any major record label now. Basically, everyone is an independent artist, as my colleague said earlier. So if there's no support, it means, there's no music existing anyway, because everyone is an independent artist. So it's really important to have government institutions and private sector understanding that this is an area that needs support and could generate a lot of income as other sectors.
And also tourism somehow, because for some people like me, it's the first time in Kigali. And if it wasn't for access, right, I wouldn't be here today. So it's also a good thing because it shows us a lot more of how involved the government is in the country. And talking about support, talking about being, able to push these African independent artists, I'm going to ask you, Josh, what you think about the collaboration of international institutions with African independent artists and how that can be of help or positively, of course, in their careers.
Yeah, I think sometimes there can be a misconception about that term independent. I think a lot of the time we think it's like do it yourself, but really if an artist is going to scale from local to international, they are going to need a team of some sort. Just looking sort of at our experience as Bound to Spaceship, I remember we started off solely as a studio sort of performance. But then to get the music out there, because we knew that our music wasn't necessarily commercially viable, but it had a sort of a niche market. We had to sort of look into and understand where does our music fit in. So that sort of led us to engaging with individuals that we felt understood our music. And that helped us scale from doing studio work to translating that into like a live performance, which then translated into us going on tour and performing at festivals and venues across Africa and across Europe. So all of that needs individuals, organizations that have that vision to sort of point you in the right direction and be like, look, you can translate your music this way, and this is what will come out of it.
And, well, thank you for that, because then I'm going to ask Glenn also, who is also an artist. What do you think about what Josh just said? Do you agree, or do you have anything else to add?
Oh no, I 100% agree, because especially, for example, like our label works on exporting Ethiopian music, meaning like introducing Ethiopian music to the world. So there's already, in the local Ethiopian market, there's already like challenges that we're trying to overcome, right? But when we're trying to compete in a global market, like partnering with international companies become crucial because they have more resources and like they can open a lot more doors than we would, or it would take us just a longer time in a sense. So partnering with like international, so we work with Sony for one of our artists, so that has opened a lot of doors that it would have taken us a long time to have access to. Yeah.
So, and again, we're still staying on the same key point as I talk to you, Isioma, and ask you, you working with Young John, who is right now having a lot of success globally.
Right.
How did that happen? Like, what was the strategy? What did you do that was different, or that we need to know about, that someone can learn from, or an artist can learn from if he needs to, get that reach globally?
So, like I said, the first thing an artist needs to know they need to get their music right. And also, local success translates to success with Africans in diaspora and eventually global mass adoption. In the sense that if you do not forget your home. In the sense that if you put out music that everybody in like Africa enjoys, it will grow to the Africans in America, to the Africans in Canada, and then that will also lead you help in touring, where you're able to have your music to like the white man, different people of different colors. So I think that, or I know that this is a great way, like artists, they need to never forget their home. That's the most important thing when doing music, because you have situations where people even do features with like big artists and they forget the type of music, go straight into doing, I call it white man music. They forget to doing like their home-based sound. They go straight into doing white man music, and that's different. It would never blow back home, you know? It's just what it is. But then when you see someone like Thames, how like her authenticity stands out. Burna Boy, it stands out. And then you have like white people coming for their concerts. Rema the other day had his concert back home, a 12,000 capacity, because till tomorrow he's still singing Beanie Boy, he's still singing in Pidgin, and which also had him having like a license deal with FIFA. So we should never ever forget our home.
That is a wonderful point, and everyone is agreeing on the panel. Like they're like, yes, we need to remain authentic to who we are. We need to be who we are, and like you said, not forget our home. But then I'm going to ask you, how would you say it's? I'm asking everyone, and anyone can answer. Would you say it's difficult in this time and age where someone makes music, right, and then it's super popular, and they feel like, oh, maybe I can do that too because that's what's trending. We're in the social media age now. Everyone wants to go viral on social media. Everyone wants to, be able to do that 30-second song or dance that is very super popular. So how do you, as an independent artist, balance the demands of the local music market and the international music market?
Okay, me? Okay.
It's for anyone.
Anyone, but then I like to say something. It will never last if you just focus. I know we're also saying digital platforms. If you just focus on TikTok or you're trying to go global, you always have to stay through to your culture. You always have to stay true to that. Because if you keep doing, I want to do music to stay through to this part, to stay true to global, it would never last. Because you have fans there that look up to you and they enjoy a certain type of music. Now, when you're going out of it and doing something that they can't even relate to, it just would never last. So you always have to maintain true to your identity.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think authenticity is strong currency for an independent artist because part of being independent is that you have creative control. And I think it's important to have strong musical identity. I mean, if we're talking about what's trending, if we're talking about what's popular, like Amapiano or Afrobeats, you can trace it to an authentic space. Like we are talking about Afrobeats now because there was Fela Kuti, there was Tony Allen. We're talking about Amapiano now because South Africa has a very long and strong history when it comes to electronic music. So all these sort of giants on the continent that have conquered the continent and the globe have built on their musical heritage. So I think it's very important for African artists to really consider when they're making their music that, look, okay, Amapiano's good, Afrobeats is good, but what do we have? Like what's popping in our culture, in our heritage in Rwanda? What's popping in Zimbabwe? Like what can we take from our musical heritage, reinvent, innovate, and create our own sort of Afrobeats or Amapiano, that sort of thing. Yeah.
I think to that too, also I think we need to be bold and at some extent also be stubborn, to like give what we believe is good, music. And you never know, you might be the next trendsetter, you know. So being more influenced by what's trending can't let you bring the next piano to the global market. So as an independent artist, like he said, you have a room to be free in terms of creating your music. So that room should be used to be able to produce something you believe in, not just because you're doing it because it's trending or something. So that boldness and being stubborn at some extent, that's what I wanted to add on. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I want to add as well. I mean, like, I agree with everybody on the panel, but I also see the point of trying to adapt to trends, or trying to, like, see something that's successful and trying to adapt it to your own. So I don't think that's necessarily bad, but in terms of, like, how do you bring, for example, like, there are people in Ethiopia that do Amapiano songs, but they don't do pure Amapiano that's, like, used in, like, South Africa and everything, but, like, they fuse it with, like, Ethiopian culture, like, and they bring it to their own, but they still use some elements that people are already, like, vibing with, right? So it's like, I heard this saying, give people what they want today, to tell them what they want tomorrow. So, like, if there's something that's already popular, then you just have to add your own element and kind of, like, also tap into that already existent, like, wave that's going on. So I also, if you use it wisely, I guess.
So staying true to who you are, being authentic, maintaining your culture is what keeps coming back. It's almost like the number one thing, and then making good music. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about music. The music needs to be good, right? Yeah. It's true that, some sketchy songs have gotten viral, but we are talking about being able to make good music so you can actually have a sustainable music career. I would ask you, real quick, anyone who wants to answer again, what do you think, apart from everything that you've said, especially when it comes to partnerships or collaborations? Because sometimes some independent artists, believe that if they collaborate maybe with a really big artist, then they get that. Of course, they get that visibility. But then, do they have that sustainable career? Or does it last? Like how Isioma says. So, what do you guys think about that? Those independent artists who are like, oh, I just need to do one song with Burna Boy and that's it. I'm popular.
So I'll say that that's a wrong idea to say you need to feature maybe somebody. If you can, why not reach for the stars, my dear? But I'll say, for example, let's say I'm an indie artist who has maybe 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify. There are artists like Alicia Cara. There are a few artists like all over the world. Even in Jamaica, we'll have a few artists. There's Dexter Daps, although I know Dexter Daps is really big. There's Christopher Martin. That's why, as an artist, your career is your business. You have to be able to research, not just saying, oh, there's Burna Boy, there's Whiskey, there's Drake. That's you reaching for the stars. That's good, my dear. But if you research, you'll be able to find out that there are other artists who have like 2 million monthly listeners on Spotify, 1.5 monthly listeners, which will open you to new markets, open new doors for you. Let's say you feature an Alicia Cara, for example. That's an R&B artist. If I'm a fan of her, once I see that you do music with her, I'm interested. Who's this guy? Your next song you release, I'm on your radar already. Like, who's this person? So it opens new doors for you.
I'd like to also add to that. You need to see at what cost the collaboration is coming. Because, it's good to collaborate with a big artist, but are they involved, after producing the song? Because it depends. You could have the money and just go, you pay, and the artist do the song. And what comes after is, they leave you with the song, and you don't know what to do because they are the ones with the platforms and everything. So it's not a one shoe fit all. So it could work depending on the deal, how it is. Also, it couldn't work because maybe the negotiations and what happens after the production.
Are there any other? Do you want to add anything? Oh, okay, go ahead.
I believe in slow and steady. I think sometimes things that come quickly fizzle out quickly. So I think, especially if we're talking about like what you said about good music, I think good music takes time to create. And I think focusing on the quality of your sound, focusing on the quality of your music requires a certain level of patience, because if we're honestly speaking, not everyone is going to be Burna Boy. Not everyone is going to be Tiwa Savage or AKA may he rest in peace. But, you know, you have to take your time with what you're making, especially if you want to create something authentic, especially if you want to create something that stands out.
I'm going to go back a little bit into our conversation because as you were speaking, you know, I kind of thought about this and I wanted to ask you, especially because today we're really being, you know, it's all about technology today. It's all about, you know, being a digital era, let's put it that way. And AI is coming into the picture and blockchain is coming into the picture. I would like to ask, you know, anyone, how do you think that that movement or the future of technology can work for an independent artist? Anyone?
I think we have to understand it. I think with anything new that comes into an industry, you have to take your time to understand what this is about. And then you apply that knowledge accordingly. Because sometimes certain things come on board and then they don't necessarily have a good effect on the industry. I mean, for me, like for example, I mean, there was an NFT craze at one point, and people were going crazy about NFTs, which is cool and fine, but I feel like, you know, we, particularly where, in our context, where a lot of young African artists don't have access to knowledge about these things, we really need to take our time to understand how these new technologies can help us at the end of the day.
Okay, so we're almost, you know, because we have to take our questions and answers from the public or insights. But just a little summary, we're speaking about being authentic to yourself, being, you know, true to your culture, making good music, slow and steady, take your time, make good music and put it out there. Strategies, brand yourself. Like Isioma and Blend said, you have to learn how to market yourself. You have to learn how to pretty much hustle. Because you were like, Isioma said, you can't release a song and, you know, you just say, oh, let the label take, or not labels, let whoever take care of it, let internet take care of it. You have to push, you have to push, you have to push. And pretty much, would we say that is, you know, some sort of blueprint or kind of guide or strategy to being able to have some sort of visibility when it comes to the global market? Would you guys agree, or would you add or subtract?
I think that's pretty much it. But also, the more you grow bigger, it becomes big as well. The hustle and the people involved and the strategies involved, it becomes bigger. But the basics, what you just mentioned, the hustle just keeps, you know, getting.
It gets more, a little bit more difficult or complex as you go bigger, or is that what
Complex, I would say, because you're now, maybe if you're starting in Rwanda, let's say, in Kigali, targeting the audience here in Kigali, the next thing you know, in Kenya, Nairobi, or Uganda, East Africa is following you. The strategies you use and the efforts is a bit more than what you were using here. So the more you grow bigger, the more also you get connections around. So I think the once you have the basics of the branding yourself and all the hustle you mentioned, you just need to be consistent and add more energy. Because if you reach at that level and you start saying, as she said, you know, let me leave it to the, now that I have an audience, they will be waiting for my next song. And that's how, you know, you start being complacent and everything starts falling down. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to add, like you said, hustle. As you hustle, you need to also invest in yourself. Now, as indies, you know, you have like distro company giving you advance. What do you use that advance for? Do you use the advance to buy cars? Do you use it to buy clothes? Do you use it to buy bling blings? Like you say you want to go global. Yeah, I know like going global is very expensive. Like she started, funding is a very big problem in this. But if you have like distro company giving you advance to market your music, how are you able to use that fund? Do you use it to do things that are unnecessary, or you're using it to invest in yourself? That's why, if every statement I've said today is you as an artist, you are a business. How does a business grow? You need to learn to invest back in yourself.
Thank you so, so much. We'll take a couple of questions or insights, if there are any. Oh, right here. Let me bring you the mic. It's fine. It's not a problem.
Sorry. Thank you. So again, my name is Paul Ntwine. I do international sports marketing and a bit of events. But I have a background in managing artists while I was in Uganda and festivals. So my question is in regard to, you've talked a lot about in terms of the artists exporting themselves, them staying true to who they are.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of debate about code switching. You hear people saying, oh, the way Davido sounds when he's doing his interviews on an American shows is different from how when he's doing his interviews here. And whereas you want to stay true, there's a certain science to it that an artist, through time and exposure, learns that this is how the market operates, and these are the things I need to take advantage of. So my point here is, how do you, as an independent artist, reconcile that difference so that what you're doing is it's marketing and selling you, but again, it doesn't strip so much away from your identity that it's pretty much understandable. And then number two is regard to data. Data is the new oil. I know Mr. Easy, because I worked for one of the concerts he attended in Uganda. He has a tech company, so he's able to monitor his streams and plan his concerts and promotion based on where he sees if streams are low in Uganda or they're high in Uganda, he'll be like, I need to go to Uganda. If they're high in Rwanda, and data is not something that artists tend to invest in, yet it's the new oil. It's what makes you help plan for your money well. What advice would you give an artist in terms of how they can start utilizing data to make informed business decisions? Thank you.
So let me answer the first question. So as much as we've talked about being authentic and how important it is, we also can mention that being relevant is also important to the other audience, So it's like creating that balance always when you're creating music, just trying to stick to your authentic self, but at the same time creating sound that's also relevant to non-African ears as well. So it's like everything, like with the interviews, with everything, it's just trying to find that balance where you stay true to yourself at the same time, but you're also relevant to people as well. So I don't know if that answers the question.
The question on data.
To the second question is, that's the good thing about now these digital platforms. You have access to data that you weren't able to access to before. Now you can know who's listening to you, what age group, from which country, where, So everyone has access to this type of information nowadays because of technology. So it's really important to know, So I know some artists, like from here, from Rwanda, came to realize that there are a lot of Swahili-speaking people that are following them. They started producing songs in Swahili because of the information they got from the data.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? I think there's one.
Hi, my name is The Serpent. I play guitar in Bantu Spaceship. My question's kind of a two-parter. The first part is, how do you think the proliferation of the internet and the subsequent global village affects authenticity in terms of a musician and the art they create? And how do you mitigate being adversely affected by the multiple influences that can come with it? And is there a need to mitigate that influence?
Who would like to answer that? Oh, you didn't get the question?
Yeah.
Oh, the second part of your question, please.
The second part of my question was, how do you mitigate that influence, that adverse influence from the global village, and is there a need to mitigate that, which is kind of asking about the authenticity that was being mentioned earlier?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I mean, I think looking at the internet, I think ultimately what's interesting about Africa is that we assign, you know, like you can't be controlled by a tool, basically, because that's what the internet is. I don't think anyone, even if you're not a musician, you should allow yourself to be controlled by the internet, for example. I think the internet is a tool that allows us to communicate, to express, to showcase, to connect with the world. And that connection, looking at just trying to answer your second question, I think it's very important to not try to cut ourselves off in that sense, because music is not just for the musician. Music is not just for your country or, you know, where you were born. Music is essentially for everyone. And I think having that understanding and applying that understanding helps to sort of mitigate this being overwhelmed by all these elements that are thrown out on the internet. Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Okay,
One more
really quickly because our time is up.
Okay, so one more to add. So when it comes to, well, like you say, like with the global village, like everybody has that influence where like we're all kind of like speaking the same lingo, right? So tapping into the authentic self means that you stand out in that global village. So it's really important that you tap into that authentic self so that you can stand out in the similar environment, if that's it's one quick thing I can add.
Well, our time is up, unfortunately. Well, thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you to you guys for staying back and listening to us and your questions. Thank you, Access. Thank you, Creation Africa. Thank you guys so much. A round of applause for all of you for a
Make
wonderful
some noise.
day. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. If you guys could stand for a quick picture. Thank you so much. That was a really, really great session.